Let's start with a word of prayer. Father, I want to thank you for the morning, for a beautiful, beautiful day, and wonderful time we had in worship. Just thank you for your many blessings. Lord, we just look to you to speak to us. Each one of us, we need you every day. We need to hear from you every day. So, Lord, I just pray that you'd speak very clearly. Thank you for your love. In your name I pray, amen. I want to start this morning by reading Proverbs 16, 1 through 9. Proverbs 16, 1 through 9 says, "The plans of the heart belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the spirit. Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. Everyone who is arrogant in heart is an abomination to the Lord. Be assured, he will not go unpunished. By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord one turns away from evil. When a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies to be at peace with him. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues with injustice." In verse 9, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." Uh, I just, I read that verse, and on a good day, I think I understand it. But I'd like us just to stop and think about that for a second. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Now, if you spent much time in Proverbs, you're going to discover by the time you get to chapter 16, the Proverbs are just filled with small statements of wisdom, cautions of what choices not to make, what kind of person not to be. And by the time you get to 16, so much has been covered. And here we read, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." There's only 31 chapters in Proverbs. And so in 31 chapters, we're about halfway here. And the reason I think it's just an odd statement, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. How does the Lord establish the steps of a fool? Because the Proverbs speak clearly about the dumb choices of fools. And it says, "The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps." I don't think the Lord establishes the steps of a fool. It talks about the fool in different respects. There are babbling fools, it talks about in chapter 10, verse 10. It talks about how ultimately they end up stirring up violence and strife. Up through chapter 16 talks about lazy people and how people who, I mean, I could give you all the references, but we're already kind of late today, so I'm going to kind of abbreviate a lot of what I was going to talk about. And it talks about how the lazy person, it doesn't work, that how life becomes poverty-stricken, and so encourages people to be hard workers, industrious. And it talks about how the person who doesn't tend their fields or tend their crops, they are also in a place of foolishness, because when the harvest comes in and you have some people with bumper crops because they tended the fields, and that person without food on their table, they didn't do that. And so there they are in a place of want and need. You have cautions about the greedy person, the person who it's all about taking whatever shortcut they can, making whatever decision they can, whether it's walking on people, stepping on them, because it's all about greed. It's all about riches. And so they make their plans accordingly. Now back again to the lazy person or the sluggard. It's not that they have a plan. That's the problem. They don't have a plan at all. They just living from day to day. You have people that are talked about up through chapter 16 who cave to temptation. Everybody's going to be tempted, but there's several times that the strong encouragement's given not to cave to the temptation of the adulteress, who's always calling for that weak person to stumble and fall. And it even gives the illustration of the adulteress, who married woman, husband's off on a trip, but she's calling for people to come in, guys walking by who have no internal strength at all. Talking about more than just sexual immorality, but just people who just have no capacity inside to resist what they know is a wrong thing to do in temptation. And so, why do I bring all these things up? One of my greatest frustrations in life, I don't know about you guys, doesn't it frustrate you when things are going pretty well for you, and you can see it might be your own children, it might be a close friend, it might be somebody you don't know all that well, but you can see that in a sort of way, they're stepping in front of a bus. They're jumping in front of a subway train, even though they're not doing it intentionally. Their actions are going to end up in a place of disaster. And you're like, what can I say? What can I do? This is like a disaster unfolding in slow motion. You've been saying all the right things. They're not getting. Do you know what I'm talking about? Kind of frustrating, right? And so when we get to Proverbs 16, and it says, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. No, I don't believe the Lord establishes the steps of a fool. I don't believe the Lord establishes the steps of that greedy person, that it's all about whatever it is they're after next. Maybe it's about getting rich. God doesn't care about you getting rich. He doesn't. Somebody that's always stirring up drama and strife. So, what is he saying then? Because I don't believe the Lord establishes the steps of any of these crazy people. So, just look at it with me. It says, the heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his steps. Now, if we back up and look at earlier in the chapter, the plans of the heart, verse 1, belong to man, but the answer of the tongue is from the Lord. So, first of all, he says the plans of the heart belong to man. It is your choice. It is all up to you what your plan is going to be. You make your own plans. God gives you that freedom and that space. So if you want to make a plan to step in front of a bus, this might sound harsh. He's going to let you. There are people who say, look, I don't believe in God. You know what? Might break God's heart, but it's like the rich man that Jesus was witnessing to, and the rich man said, yeah, I can't sell everything I have, and so he walked away, and Jesus was sad about it, but it's your choice. You make up your plan. That's on you. God gives you the freedom to make your choices. It's actually a privilege that he extends to us. Choose to do what you want. The plans of the heart, that's on you. They belong to you. So make your plan. Here's an interesting thing he says too in verse 2. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes. That's not encouraging, guys. That's a warning. Do you know what that's saying? The plan is all up to you. Make your plan. But just understand something. Everybody thinks their plan is the right one. And they're going to get defensive because in their eyes, they got a good reason for it. They're justified. Their plan is somehow pure in their own mind. What the caution there is this. you got to be careful what's going on in your mind and in your heart. It might be yours to make that choice and to make that plan. Doesn't mean it's going to be the right one. And so maybe you're not the lazy person, and maybe you have a plan, and maybe it is about stirring up strife, and maybe it's going to take you a really bad place. You just can't see it. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes. Look at the last half of the next verse. But the Lord weighs the spirit. So in spite of what you think, you might have your own plan. The word for plan, by the way, it's thinking. It's what you plan to do, what you devise, what you put in place. You want to accomplish this, you got to have a plan. So yesterday, day before, I spent some time. I love this thing of taking primitive weapons, muzzle loaders, and going hunting, even though they aren't very successful. I just love it. And anybody close to me knows that. Great day yesterday, because I had my son and 2 grandsons and my son-in-law. We defied the odds because we went up this mountain in the snow, bicycles, way back this mountain with these primitive weapons. Just had a great day. It was cold, but we had a great day. When you do that, you got to have a plan. You got to think about it. What do I need to do? You can have all kinds of things go wrong, but you got to have a plan. So I just want you to think about it. So you have a plan, and you have all the stuff in motion. Well, it's just like I talked about. That's the privilege God gives you. The heart, the plans of the heart belong to man. That's your privilege. And you're going to defend your plan. Because in your mind, it's a good plan. It's pure in your eyes. But the Lord, He's the one who weighs the spirit. Oh, now there's a spiritual dimension. What's going on in your mind with your logic, your thinking that puts together this plan? It's something that comes from your heart or your desires within. But it's the Lord who weighs the spirit. It's the Lord who's there like this with the scales saying, okay, but in your spirit, I'm looking at what's going on in the spirit. And so no, He's not going to establish the plans of a fool. He's not going to establish the plans of the lazy who actually have no plan. But what are you supposed to do? Verse 3, commit your work to the Lord and your plans will be established. So you're supposed to take this plan and you're supposed to commit it to the Lord. That means now it's all about, your plan is all about the Lord. You might have had things stirring in your mind and in your heart, but now it's all about the Lord. So commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established. The Lord has made everything for its purpose, even the wicked for the day of trouble. But then He goes on to caution, everyone who is arrogant in the heart is an abomination to the Lord. So what's going on in the spirit? Arrogance is something that rises up in one's spirit, that twists what's going on in your desires in your heart and messes with your mind. And so what's going on in your spirit? Everyone who's arrogant in the heart is an abomination to the Lord. So you commit your plan, you commit your work to the Lord, you better know something. You better watch what's going on in your spirit with arrogance, because God's not going to be in that. Be assured He will not go unpunished. That is the one who all of a sudden has arrogance rising up. It says, by steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, and by the fear of the Lord one turns away from evil. A couple of things here. By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for. And you might step back and think, oh, wait a second. I'm good. I gave my life to Jesus. I ask for forgiveness. I'm all good. Steadfast love and faithfulness. It's because of God's, let's start with him. It's because of God's steadfast love, because of his faithfulness, that you have salvation, that you have the hope of having a plan that comes from some inspiration from God. And so when he says by steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for, we're talking about God's steadfast love and faithfulness. And because of his steadfast love and faithfulness, you're supposed to be now living in a place of steadfast love and faithfulness. By steadfast love and faithfulness, iniquity is atoned for. So back to my little hiccup here, but you thought, well, you're good. You're good before God. Do you know what an iniquity is? An iniquity, there's sins, there's trespasses, and there's iniquities. We're not going to get into all of them because you're only going to remember so much anyway. An iniquity is a twistedness inside. It's a weakness that is part of who you are. And the Bible says in other places that those things, they can be passed down from generation to generation. I can't understand all that altogether myself. I think I understand some of it. But this iniquity is a weakness. You don't have to act on it, but once you act on it, there's this twistedness, and it's a twistedness that affects how you look at things, how you think about them. And it's by steadfast love and faithfulness. You being faithful to God, standing in there with him, walking in his love, it's by steadfast love and faithfulness that the iniquity is atoned for. And it's not just atoned for. We can look at scriptures in the New Testament that talks about how God actually straightens these things out. In my mind, he straightens out what's twisted and makes it for good. You know, kind of like there are people who are just extremely greedy. Do you know what I'm talking about? They would sell anything, even their own, to get ahead. Those people are probably have the gift of giving if they ever get their heart right with God, because they have this knack for gathering. But all of a sudden, when it comes to gathering for the Lord, then all of a sudden it gets straightened out, and what was for them is now all for God. So when these iniquities get straightened out, it's usually that there's this virtuous thing that the iniquity interrupts. But when it's straightened out, all kind of good things happen for God and his purposes. When a man's ways, verse 7, please the Lord, he even, oh wait, we missed one, probably the most important one. And by the fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil. A lot of people, they don't like talking about the fear of the Lord. It seems like a negative thing to them. Why should we be afraid of God? He loves us. He died for us. We lose sight of who God is, guys. Earlier in the Old Testament, it says he's a consuming fire. Anything that is not righteous and holy is consumed in his presence. And that's just how it is. We stand before God and we haven't been cleansed, it is not going to be a pleasant thing, because we will be consumed if all our life is twistedness and being messed up. Oh, we're gonna suffer being consumed by a raging fire. He loves us. That's why he sent Jesus to die for us, to cleanse us. And so if we think somehow we shouldn't fear him, oh, we're mistaken. But it's not a fear that's supposed to leave us shaking with great places of anxiety. It's supposed to be the kind of fear that there's so much reverence for God. There's so much respect for him and reverence for him that we find it actually comfortable. That our fear of God is at a place of saying, I'm going to honor him with all that's in me. And because of my confidence of his work of steadfast love and faithfulness to me, He sent Jesus to die for me. I'm going to hold him with the highest regard. And so I am going to revere him. I'm going to walk in a place. You know what? Maybe I should just share here a little personally. Do you know what happens when you're given a death sentence? Do you know what happens when the doctor calls? And I was driving down the street. Do you know what the doctor calls and says? Yeah, you have cancer. Happened to me on February 28th last year. I'm driving. He says, are you okay driving? Because I have something to tell you. I'm thinking, this doesn't sound good. I said, yeah, I'm good. Go ahead. And then he started talking. I wasn't good. I pulled over and parked to hear all of it. And from that moment on, when I pulled ahead, moved on, called Becky and said, we need to talk. All of a sudden, the speed limits jumped out more to me. The stop signs, the red lights. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, what? But am I right before God in all things? This is not a good time to think bad things are okay. This is not a time to give myself a pass on this thing and that thing. Because here it says this. All the ways of a man are pure in his own eyes. So just a few minutes before that, coasting through a stop sign or being 10 miles over the speed limit, not a big deal. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, wait a second. I can come up with all kinds of justifications. But listening to this, all of a sudden I'm driving the speed limit. I'm stopping at stop signs. I'm looking twice before I pull ahead. I don't know how to help anybody get this, but all of life should be the kind of reverence and fear of God that takes life that serious. Not because we're full of anxiety. No, because we want to know when the hand grenades go off, when the bad news comes. We want to know this. I'm good with God. I'm good with him. He's been working this cleansing in my life. And over the months, that was a constant thing. How many times I heard God say, Rich, I love you. We're good. But the perspective of my heart, what is that? What's the perspective of your heart? Don't give yourself a pass on what's not okay. It doesn't put you in a strong place. He says in verse 7, when a man's ways please the Lord, he makes even his enemies at peace with him. That means the very people that are your enemies, all of a sudden, you wonder, what's going on? What's going on? Because I don't feel that place of conflict with this person who's always had it in for me. There's a little with righteousness in verse 8, and great revenues with injustice. And then verse 9, which now makes so much more sense to me. And I'm going to try to wrap this up really neatly with a few things I want to say. The heart of man plans his way. So what is the question? Here's the question. So what's going on with your heart? What's going on with your heart? When you look at 2026, what's your plan? And what's going on with your heart? It's on you to make your plan. But the heart, that part of you, that where your desires are, where your plans are, where you're a deep place where your mind gets to thinking, I could do this and this and this whole thing that life grows out of. Well, what's going on in your heart? And what kind of thinking is going on there? This planning, this logic that's at work. What is going on in this planning, this thinking, this looking ahead? What kind of logic is there? Is it a heart that's been given to God? Because if it's a heart that's been given to God, No longer is it your logic at work. No, it's supposed to be, okay, God, I got this idea. I'm thinking this. But Jesus, you're right here with me. And so help me think through this. If you look at the Proverbs up through chapter 16, it'll tell you so many places that we don't have time to go there right now, but so many places, a person who seeks wisdom from God and understanding from God, God gives it. So what's going on? Are you seeking wisdom and understanding? Is your heart in a place that says, God, I want to know how you're thinking. I want an understanding that comes from you. I want your wisdom in this. Is that the case? Or have you turned away from him and it's all about whatever it is you're chasing after? What is it? Because the verse here that I didn't elaborate on, I started to, but I didn't. He says, by the fear of the Lord, one turns away from evil. When you fear the Lord, turning away from evil starts with fearing the Lord, where you have chosen, you are going to stand before God and you want to honor him and revere him in all things. And so that's the choice you've made. By doing that, you're turning away from evil. So when it says that the heart of man plans his way, the word way there is talking about a journey. So when you're thinking about the journey that you're on today, the journey you're on for tomorrow, the journey you think you're on for the year, because 1 year ago, I wasn't planning on battling cancer for most of the year. You got to know that. That was not my plan. And there's all kinds of things that can interrupt your plan. The question is, what's the position of your heart? What's going on with your heart and your mind? Is your heart and your mind really given unto the Lord in such a way that this journey that you're on, the way of thinking, has been turned over and Jesus is actually in your heart? We're supposed to have asked Jesus into our heart. That's not just a cute little kid thing. Jesus, his spirit, is supposed to be an abiding presence in our life. It's supposed to affect our thinking, our processing, our plans. The heart of man plans his ways, the journey. Jesus is supposed to be a part of all that. I don't know. Every song we sang reflected that somehow this morning. Worship was awesome. Josh and I always have a word of prayer. I go up there to talk with Josh. He says, yeah, I got about 17 songs. I said, hey, if you think you're supposed to do 17 songs, let's sing 17 songs. The plan, the journey that you have, where's your heart? It's all on you to make your plan. But is Jesus in your heart? Is he there? Is he giving you the way the logic is supposed to happen? The way the process is supposed to happen? Even when the unpleasant surprises come? Like the unpleasant surprise that hit me on February 28th. Do you know what you do then? You say, oh, this is rough. But because I fear the Lord and he establishes my steps, I'm going to keep walking. I'm going to trust him. And so God, every day, so God, what is it you have in this for me today? I didn't know on February 28th or March 1st or August 1st or September 1st. I didn't know whether I would be here or whether I would not. But one thing I've known all through it, every day, one thing I've known, that regardless of what step I would be at, the Lord is going to be with me. That he is faithful. It says here, steadfast love and faithfulness. Even when I mess up, even when iniquities rise up, none of us are perfect. I might make a mistake, but you know what? even when I do, his faithfulness, his steadfast love, he's going to be there. He's going to walk with me through it. And so you might be on a path and you might have something blow up, and all of a sudden the bridge you were going to get from here to there, it isn't there anymore. God is. If your heart has been given to him, he's there. And there's so many other scriptures that say he's going to make a way where there's no way. It's by his steadfast love and faithfulness. We choose steadfast love and faithfulness. And he makes a way. And so he says what? He establishes his steps. You know what the word establish means? It means you can count on it. It's firm. It's solid. I've seen people walk in here with these steps, not pay attention to where they're walking, and fall. And we try hard to make people aware of the fact that these steps, you know what, guys, we can walk in life and we can think we're on a solid path, and all of a sudden, wow, something happens. And it says he establishes our steps. You can count on the Lord to establish your steps. Even when something blows up in front of you and you're there, Lord, what now? He's there. And he's either going to say, you just keep on walking. Or he's going to say, well, I want you to walk this way. Or I want you to walk that way. Because you're not turning to Google necessarily. You're not turning to this person or that fool for answers. But you're listening to the Lord. And I don't mean that everybody's going to have counsel, because there's other proverbs that say it's the counsel of many, talking about the righteous. So we're supposed to be in a place of also wanting to hear wisdom from one another that God may have given us. The bottom line is it's the Lord who establishes his steps. And so going forward into 2026, you might have something really unpleasant smack you in the face. But when your heart is unto God, all things unto God, and you make your plans accordingly, and Jesus is invited to be a part of that plan, and you're listening and you're hearing from him, the Lord will establish your steps. He will give you a firm step from this place to this place to this place. And we have to trust him in that. And I'm not suggesting, by using myself as a personal illustration, I'm not suggesting that had God taken me to be home with him, that somehow that would have been a failure. No, it's God's. It's all about the journey he has for us. I've had several close people die in the past 2-3 years. I don't believe was an issue of unfaithfulness on their part. I'm going to trust God in all things. The question is, what is the posture of the heart? You going forward, what is the posture of your heart? It's up to you to make your plan. But that plan is supposed to happen because of Jesus in your heart. You and Jesus, and walking together every day. And I also think it's interesting, it says God establishes his steps. So the journey is one thing, that big thing. But the steps, that's the day to day. This step and this step and this step. God is the one who orders, who establishes, who makes firm the steps. Let's have a word of prayer. Father, I just want to thank you for life. And I want to thank you that we are all here looking forward to this new year. Lord, that our confidence is in you. And that we're not afraid to make a plan. But God, we want you breathing your wisdom, your understanding, your leading, your guiding. And then, Lord, every day, every step, we trust you to direct it, to establish it. Because we know you're faithful. And we know your steadfast love is motivating it all. So that we just walk in your love and be faithful in that pathway. In your name I pray, amen.